Welcome to another episode of Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life from the inside out. So happy to have you with us today. Today we're talking about those old beliefs and coping habits that once protected us but now just keep us stuck. So what we're going to do today is we're going to explore how to spot when a belief that we have has outlived its purpose, how to reframe it in ways that support growth, ease, and meaning, and have some fun along the way. And by we, I mean myself, JDK Winnikin, and as always, my lovely co-host, my friend, my co-producer, my collaborator, my comrade in arms, even though we don't fight, Ashley Knievel. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm never quite sure what the last flourish is going to be when I introduce you.
Yeah,
There's kind of an element of the unknown in that.
Well, you're doing good so far.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't really dropped one yet, have I?
No.
That's good.
Okay.
Knock on wood. You know, is there any wood anywhere?
All
Anyway.
good.
All right. How are you?
I'm great. Sun's out. It's a beautiful day
Yeah.
where we're at.
Yeah, it is. It
Nice.
is. And we hope that wherever you are, it is the same or will be again soon. It's starting to get to that point of the year where it gets hot in lots of places.
I'm here
So-
for it.
You're here for it. All right. So, Ashley, reframing beliefs.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Yeah. This, yet again, another episode idea that came from you. So,
Hey.
why don't you tell everybody where this came from, what this is about, and let's jump into it.
Okay. Well, I think I was, pondering one day when I was out on a walk, and then I was like, oh, this is a good idea to talk to JD about. But really, I was just kind of looking back on life a little bit and the things that I've grown through and done and whatnot over the last 10, 15 years or so. And a lot of it, it was this common threaded theme of a lot of things that I used to think and believe. They are no longer what I presently think and believe. And I realized that I have taken some of those and reframed them
Mm.
so they fit in my narrative reality today in a better way than they did in the past.
Did that happen by accident and you were realizing that? Or were you looking back, kind of recognizing moments where you were making conscious decisions to do that?
It was looking back. It was definitely
Okay.
in hindsight.
Okay.
I was very proud of myself. Give credit where credit's due here. But, I just, because there was, what was it? I think I was getting ready one morning and, scrutinize yourself all the time. And we all have our imperfections. And I am a little bit more comfortable with my imperfections in today's day than I was years ago. And I just always had this resounding belief when I was younger that if I am perfect, people, of course, are going to like me
Mm.
because people idealize perfectionism. Like they want perfect things. They want things right all the time.
That's what we're
Like,
supposed to shoot for.
exactly.
That's the message.
And so I was like, oh, if I always look perfect and I act perfect and I eat right and everything fits me well and so on and so forth, I will be very likable. I will be
Mhm.
everyone's favorite,
Mhm.
actually.
And that will then mean if you were likable and everyone's favorite, what would that mean for you?
That I would probably achieve things because just assuming, everything good comes to perfect people.
Yeah.
And that life would be comfortable and great. I would be well liked. So that would be great for my ego and opportunities would just open up. And I don't know where I got these ideas from when I was like my early 20s, but
Mhm.
there's like society pressures back then of like, you have to look perfect and
Yeah.
all these things. And as I've grown up, I'm like, actually, there's so much more to appreciate in the imperfections.
Mhm.
And people can relate to real people. Nobody
Mhm.
can relate to fake things,
Mhm.
which is,
Or perfect things.
or perfect things because
Right.
nobody's there.
Mhm.
So it was just kind of an interesting thought that I was like, first of all, acknowledging myself that good job for accepting your imperfections and learning to really love and value yourself for them.
Right.
But also, I'm like, I took a belief that I once thought, and I'm like, actually, no.
Mhm.
Being perfect is not that most ideal thing.
Mhm.
Being imperfect actually is.
Well, and I wonder too if there was some understanding there along the line of that myth of perfection, because all the things you were laying out of what it would give you, on the far end of that, what I see is this notion that you'll be safe and everything will be okay.
Mhm.
If you get all those things, right? If the perfection, then you have nothing to worry about.
Right.
Everything's all right, right? But it sounds like part of this process was recognizing you don't need it to be that way to be okay.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and there's like way more fun in earning things than just
Mm,
having it handed to you. So I'm
right,
like, well, if I'm perfect and it's just handed to me, how boring is
right,
that?
right, right. Yeah, there's no learning curve. There's no deeper digging into meaning if there isn't imperfection that we have to work through.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was a story that you realized you ended up
That is the
reframing.
long-winded story.
For once,
I'm trying out
long
JD's
listeners,
tactics here.
hold
Let me
on,
know what you
but
think.
hold on, I haven't gone yet.
Oh,
So we'll
there's
see.
more. Just kidding. Anyways,
I
well,
can
so
relate. I
you
can relate.
can?
I can.
Oh,
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
me.
And I think we all can. Mine, the story that I had to reframe was a really powerful one, and that story would go like this: my past mistakes have been so severe that means I deserve less in the present and
Ouch.
the future.
So relatable.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone can relate to that.
On some
I'm
level, yeah, I think so.
certain.
Yeah, these are very relatable things.
Yeah.
Perfectionism, and I guess this would almost be the opposite. I'm not just imperfect. I'm just not anywhere close to good in the past. And so therefore, because
Yeah.
of that, I deserve scraps going forward. I deserve less.
Hmm.
I deserve less satisfaction, less happiness, less money, those things. I had to battle that for a really long time. I've talked on this show before, if you've been a long time listener, of my past path through addiction. And that's kind of a legacy of it. That's getting behavior or substances under control is one thing that's hard enough. Untangling and unraveling the threads of consequence and emotional feeling and beliefs
Mm-hmm.
is a whole other thing. That
So,
takes a long time.
like, do you know where that originated from? Was it just you felt like you messed up so many times in your past that you are not valuable enough?
Yeah. Yeah. And there'd be no way that I could prove it otherwise. Right.
Interesting.
And even if I were perfect,
Yeah.
it wouldn't erase it. So in some ways it's an existential thing. It's like I'm not good enough, not just to me, right? I can never have that, but in the eyes of the universe or of God or of existence or of other people. It was a really heavy story to carry for a long
I
time.
mean, that can be so debilitating, like,
It was.
because you take that so far, people may then be like, well, what is the whole point?
Yep.
Why am I even here
Yep.
if I'm not worthy of anything?
Exactly. And it's one reason why it's something in addiction that happens a lot. People tend to feel that way, which is why they're medicating
Mhm.
that. The
Mhm.
scary part of what can happen with that, though, is you start letting go of the abuse of substances or behavior or whatever, and you're left with those feelings or those stories. And if you don't deal with them well enough, the fear becomes that you're not going to survive them. Either something terrible is going to happen, or the pain will become so unbearable that you have to do something about it. And that's always the scary part. And so for many people, it's easiest to just numb that out.
Right.
And for me,
Right.
for many years, it was. And so coming out of that, I made a deal with myself early on in my recovery that I was simply not going to go that route.
Hmm.
In part because what happened with my crashing out was like the worst thing I ever could have imagined. That was like the thing I wanted to avoid as much as possible. Well, it happened, and I was still standing. So I was like, okay, if I survived that, right, I should be able to survive anything. So fortunately, I had that, but it took a while, and I would say for that story can still sometimes jump up on me in subtle ways that I don't recognize right
Mhm.
away. But I would say when I got the upper hand on it, generally speaking, was only about 4 or 5 years ago. Even though
Really?
I've been moving out of that addiction space for well over 13 years. So it took a long time to recognize that.
I
what those
mean,
stories
you
were.
get some of those thoughts like deeply rooted in
Yeah.
in the depths of yourself, and there's so many things to unravel that you think you found the end. You're like, oh no, it still keeps going, it
Mhm.
keeps going, it keeps going. It take a long time to go in there, and then once you recognize it, then it takes time to do the work to try and reframe that.
It does. It does. Because you have to create new neural pathways in the brain, right? New
Yeah.
belief systems. That's
Mhm.
part of what we'll talk about today, too. But here's the flip side of what you were talking about. I suggested that maybe for you, one of the motivating factors behind all that was this idea if you're perfect, you're safe, you have nothing to worry about.
Mhm.
For me, I think what was underneath all of that was if I don't push for more, if I just accept less, right? It'll just reinforce that idea. And then I don't have to step up and actually push myself
Oh,
harder
interesting you
and
recognize
further.
that.
Yeah. Took me a while to recognize that. It's a convenient thing to fall back on and just say, oh, woe is me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deserve anything. Well, if you tell yourself that long enough, you're never going to do anything.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
what a convenient way to avoid doing the hard work of doing differently and finding out if you can
Convenient excuse.
get more or more of quote unquote what you deserve, whatever that means. Right. So, all right. Two, I think, very relatable examples. So thanks for that.
Thank you
So
for that.
I think the central question for today, Ashley, is probably, if I'm thinking from a listener's point of view,
Mm-hmm.
how do we know when a belief or coping mechanism or some personal rule we have, when do we know if it's expired and how do we rewrite it? So maybe it's two questions.
Yeah, I would say that's twofold. Personally, in my experience and my example, it just after a while it became really exhausting
Yes.
because, perfectionism in all facets, and it wasn't just in like one area. I'm like in all areas in academics. Like I needed to be a straight A student and I needed to be the best looking person in the classroom and I
Mhm.
needed to be everyone's favorite friend and whatnot. And it was so exhausting. And then I realized I'm like, I don't even know who I am because I'm so busy trying to be something that I'm not. And all these people are now going to look at me and think of me as this person who is not me, or they're going to like me as that person who is not really me. And over time, I was like, I can't do this forever. And it was kind of a scary thought of like, well, what if I was just me? Would people still like me?
Mm.
Would they accept me and my flaws? And
Mhm.
then I would look at other people that were not striving for perfection and they were like awesome people.
And
Fantastic.
open about their imperfections.
Very open about their imperfections, very comfortable in themselves, very casual, and people like adored them. And I'm like, well, good for that lucky person, but I doubt my luck is good enough that if I did what
Right.
they did, it would work for me.
Right.
So, but eventually I just got tired of this and I'm like, I'm going to see what would happen if I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just give it a shot and try it out. And it was great. It was really refreshing.
Hmm.
And then, like it's kind of like when somebody tells a lie for so long, they have to keep lying to keep up the lie because they don't
Yeah.
even remember their own story anymore.
Mhm.
And then you're like, I can't even be around people because I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
It kind of felt like that. Now I'm like, I'm just me. I'm just honest and I'm just real. And it was great.
That is amazing. Was it difficult to take that step, that vulnerable step of showing
Yes.
imperfections?
Yes.
It sounds like you're recalling some specific instances of doing this. Am I getting that right?
I mean, a lot of it was probably when I was in college early
Okay.
because I did Running Start. So I was like a teenager when I was going to college. So that was one thing. But like kind of cresting out of that and into my early 20s, I just remember I was like not feeling well. And I'm like, I don't feel like dressing to the nines today for my class. Maybe if I just dress really casually, this will be okay. And I
Mhm.
just didn't feel good. And so I'm like, I didn't really feel like dolling myself up. And I was like, but people know me as like that girl that always looks like she stepped off a runway or out of like a Nordstrom catalog or whatever.
Mhm.
So I'm like, what are they going to think when they see me like this?
Ah.
And whatever they thought, they didn't tell me. But, they were still my friend. They were
Mhm.
still nice. Everything was fine. Still got good grades. Weird.
Mhm.
But like it just all of a sudden I was like, why was I buying this bananas of a story for so long?
I know. And all the energy it takes to sustain it and work within it and
Mhm.
respond to it and shape, trying to anticipate what people are going to think or feel or say or do. It's exhausting. That's the right word.
Mhm.
Okay, so anything that's exhausting you is is that. So that's an emotional cue. One for me, I think is really powerful. Resentment.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
If there's something that, in my case, if I'm resentful about, that can be an emotional cue that there's something in the beliefs behind that resentment
Mhm.
that I might need to let go of.
Interesting.
Right. Anxiety can do it too. Actually,
Sure.
anxiety is the same type of thing.
Telltales.
And because anxiety is pretty much projecting worries into the future, right?
Mhm.
About things. And that one's a little bit easier to spot. I think if you're really anxious about something, the belief to give up on is stop thinking you can have control over something just by worrying about it or trying to think through every single possible outcome, thinking that's going to protect you from pain if it happens, because it won't,
Mhm.
right? I think we've done whole episodes on that one before. So let's stick with
Probably.
resentment. Resentment is a belief that something should be different than it is. And that thing that is different than you want it to be is causing you a problem, or it feels threatening somehow, or somebody, if it's a resentment for somebody's not doing what you want them to do. It's a control thing,
So frustrating.
right? But I've seen, and I've done this myself, but I've seen resentment really, really burn into people's kind of daily lives and daily understandings and daily perceptions of the world,
Mm-hmm.
of other people, if it's somebody specific, of them. But resentments, more often than not, are built on, there might be some truth in something, but the stories that get built up around them over time indicate that the longer that goes on without that being reality checked, that resentment turns into a complete illusion. And I'll just throw this out there. A lot of things that are out in our political world today are
Yes.
resentments that have been unchallenged, right, or unexamined for a very, very
Yes.
long time. And there's a problem with that. So those are the types of cues that can tell us when maybe there's something in there. So anxiety, exhaustion, and resentment. So
Those
Okay.
are some strong cues.
yeah, they are. So those are, and kind of wrap up here for this first segment before we go to break. This can be difficult to tease out, but if maybe a metaphor is a good way to kind of use this. If you wear winter boots in the summertime,
Mm-hmm.
right? We think, why would you do that? Right? Now, you could say, I need to protect my feet, right? I need to wear shoes somewhere.
No sunburns.
Right,
for
no
my feet.
sunburns, whatever. So you're technically protecting your feet. They are
Sure.
shoes.
Sure.
But chances are, if you're wearing them in the summer, it's really slowing you down. They're really uncomfortable. Your feet are all sweaty. And when you take them off, everything's going to stink.
You're not wrong.
Not wrong, right? So why wear the winter boots?
Save them for winter.
summer? Save them for winter, right?
Winter's coming.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like, when do you realize that you're wearing winter boots in summer?
Oh,
And what
what
do
a
you
great
and what do
question
you
to
do
ask.
that? Right. Might be a good
Check
show
your
title.
shoes, people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Check your shoes.
Jeez.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I think we've opened up well here, Ashley.
We
So
opened a can of worms.
yeah, let's go ahead and take our first break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about this whole thing of when you realize that beliefs that you have are no longer serving you, what to do next. Come on back here on Staying Power. See you in a minute.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Alternative Talk, 1150 on AM, 98.9 HD3 on HD, 1150kknw.com on the web.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And today we are talking about beliefs that no longer serve us. When do we recognize that that's the case? And what do we do to reframe them, change them, discard them, move on from them, whatever it might be? So really glad you're joining us for this. And if you missed the first part of this episode or you end up missing any other part of it, remember you can catch Staying Power as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on our YouTube channel where you can kind of see how all of this goes. And you can also find out more about us at our Radio Homes website, 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle. And in all those locations, you can find show notes, as well as the ways that you can connect with Ashley and I either via social media or on our email at stayingpowershow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, get your thoughts on the show, answer any questions that you have, take suggestions for future topics and the like. And there's more to come. So we hope to hear from you. And thank you so much for joining us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ashley,
Yeah.
let's keep digging into this because hopefully everybody listening has kind of their own example in mind.
I'm sure. I'm
these.
sure they have.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously we have our examples because they are our personal experiences. But this is not just based on personal experience. There is also, I'm certain, some science behind this.
Oh,
And
of course.
Of course, you say that because you probably already researched it. Is there some science behind this?
Of course there is.
Of
And
course.
as so many things are in that we talk about on the show, neuroplasticity in the brain is where all of this happens. No belief that we have has to remain that way in perpetuity just because we have it. And it's not a process of eliminating it in a way where we just one day we don't believe it anymore and we cast it out. Our beliefs actually have connections between neurons in the brain. They reinforce that. And those interact with our bodily responses to stress, to pleasure, to everything in between, to anger, to fear, all of that to create these integrated patterns of how we respond to the things that we believe and how the things we're responding to continue to shape those beliefs.
Mm.
So the good news is those can change over time if we actively reframe beliefs and recognize what they do, because the neurons then, if we're creating new beliefs, start to fire together in different ways,
Sure.
right? And
Sure.
create a rewiring. So as Hebb's law puts it, neurons that fire together wire together, right? Yeah, I know.
We're all going to remember
What
that.
a great law. Hebb's
Great.
law. Yeah. So that's the thing is neuroplasticity. It means that beliefs can change, but you have to do it intentionally. That
Makes
there
sense.
has to be some decisions made and there have to be some ways of connecting with that and observation of oneself. And that's so much of what we do in our coaching.
Well, yes, that makes sense because even in every belief, if you think about it throughout the day, I'm sure a lot of them hit you almost like advertisements. Like they come and go, and then you see them and you choose which one you're going to believe and hang on to and which one you're just going to let pass you by. Because even like example, it's just interesting that like if you're in an argument with somebody and you're in an argument and you've got some like resentment towards each other because you're like, well, they did this and I believe their intention, why they did it was this, and that frustrates me or whatever. And then they have their own story about the situation. And then you have a conversation and you realize that wasn't the case at all. It was a misinterpretation or whatever. Immediately your belief about that person and that whole situation is gone.
Yeah.
Because you were now given new evidence and now you choose to believe something else and you completely sever what your old belief was without any attachment to it. It's like, oh, misunderstanding. Okay, great. Let it go. We moved on.
Yeah.
You know, it's like quick.
Yeah. And yet, if you do that, you can still recognize the residual emotional effect on your body, on your mind, on your mood, that whole belief system you had, even if it was for a short period of time, actually had. So imagine what that means then when you give up ones that have been long standing.
Oh, sure.
Like perfectionism.
Yeah, well, and I mean, there's other beliefs that you can do
Sure.
about, and they can be defensive.
Yeah.
You know, like if I remain very quiet and make myself small and unnoticeable, I'll be safe.
Yeah.
Because no one's gonna pick me out of a crowd.
Yeah.
No one's gonna point me out and make fun of me or something like that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if kind of in my similar vein of story of if I overachieve, I'll finally be worthy of something.
Yeah.
Opposite of what yours
One I
was.
had when I was younger wasn't so much that. It was if I just blend into whoever I'm with, I'll be safe. So whatever they're talking about, I'll agree with. Whatever they're doing,
Yeah.
I'll do. Right? I'll just I called it just being a chameleon. Right? You just blend in with your surroundings.
Yeah, and
that
people
way.
will like you more.
Exactly.
And I mean, then I've also on the flip side of that one, if like, oh, if I'm very polarizing, people will like me because I'm polarizing.
Right.
They'll
Or I'll
drawn to
be
that.
safe
Or,
from
yes,
them.
yes.
I'll repel them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of that going on these days.
Yeah, we have a lot of everything going on these
All
days.
disguise is like keeping it real, right? Or being independent. Like, well, are you keeping it real or are you actually keeping it all at a distance? You know, I wonder about that, depending on who we're talking about. All understandable though, because on a basic human level, we all want to feel accepted, okay, connected, right? Valued, those things. Maybe some of us have a harder time admitting that than others, but I do think that is at the core. And I wasn't talking about you. I was talking
I didn't say
okay,
you
good,
were.
good. Glad we got that understood.
You looked at me.
No,
That's
like,
so funny.
like, no, I'm not talking about you. Yeah. So Ashley, for
Mm-hmm.
you, like, do you have body cues, like when something's, that exhaustion, for example, when you're talking about that or resentment? Do you have body cues that? What are body cues people can be looking for as kind of ways to tell that maybe there's something here that's a belief that needs change?
My body cues, we always joke about this. You're more in tune with yourself than I am in this regard. But I felt like literal exhaustion. Like decision fatigue was coming in a lot because I'm like, I gotta like always think about what other people are thinking about of me, which is very strange.
So is that the
because-
type of fatigue that leads to being really tired, like
Yeah,
physically
yes,
tired, or emotional?
Yeah, I would say probably both. Mental exhaustion for sure. And
Sure.
then I would lose drive to do like anything
Mm.
because then I'm like, oh, I want to go out and go to the store. Here's one. I want to go to the store to go buy some groceries or something. So I'm going to spend an hour and a half to doll myself up to go to the grocery store because of whoever I might run into. And if I run into them, I want them to think this way about me,
Wow.
that I look perfect even when I go to the store. And then there's times where I'm like, I am not even going to the store right now because I don't have the energy to do that.
Mm.
When I could have just not done it
Right.
and just gone to the store.
Gone to the store.
anyways.
Right.
So just like a lack of desire to do things for me was a personal for me. Just
Mhm.
so exhausted that to the point that I had no drive to do
Right.
even simple things.
Right. Well, what's interesting, what comes to mind for me as we talk about this is that every single example we're talking about from a somatic standpoint is some sort of stress in the body or in the mind, right? Which is, they're both the same thing, right? Body and mind connected. But they're all a sign that there's internal conflict, right? If you're
Mhm.
exhausted, something's not working with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're anxious, same thing. If you're resentful, same thing. These are signs of inner conflict. And if you think about when we're feeling conflicted, stressed, isolated, angry, resentful, for me, what comes up for me, I feel a little sweaty, like hot, probably because my skin is flushing. Like my stomach gets tight,
Mm-hmm.
right? My shoulders hunch a little bit. And the number one key for me is I get restless. Like I
Yes,
just
you
move
mentioned
around.
that. You're like
I move around.
Tapping things.
Tapping things, walking around.
Pacing.
When we get to our 2-minute segment later in the show, I'll talk a little bit about it. I realized I was doing this yesterday. I was walking around my house
Mm-hmm.
just restlessly for like the longest time, trying to figure some things out.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that. But I caught that. I was like, okay, hold on. There's a belief in here that's not serving
Marks
me.
on the
What's going
floor
on?
from where I'm walking.
Right. Gaining steps, right? So, those are all
Is
things.
your watch telling you need to sit down?
Yeah, right. But see, those are the things that the body has its own wisdom in that regard, right? If those things are happening, we learn to recognize them. That can be your body's way of telling you, hey, something isn't working here. Maybe slow down and take a look and see what's here and see if there's a story in here you can give up or a belief that's no longer serving you about whatever it is might be bothering you. And then if you can do that, you can perhaps find a way of perhaps addressing it in a way that can reduce that.
Do you ever,
reaction.
I guess I kind of noticed too, also, in regards to like if you have a conflict with somebody and you are like begrudgingly hanging on to your belief
Mhm.
about whatever the situation was or whatever that person was, at least for me personally, like I try not to hold on to grudges and whatnot. But if you had like a conflict, right, there's going to be some emotional distress and whatever going on there. And there comes a moment where I'm like, I'm just like tired. Like this
Mhm.
does not feel good anymore.
Enough.
It feels like I just keep drinking some poison every time I see that person because I'm choosing to hang on to a belief
Mhm.
that's holding resentment or some sort of ill feeling.
Yeah. Drinking
that-
the poison and hope they die.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I'm like, me being upset and angry or whatever at that person actually isn't doing anything to them. It's just making
Mhm.
things worse for me. They look
Mhm.
like they're having a great day.
Mhm.
And I'm the one over here suffering.
Right, right.
And eventually I'm like, why?
Yep.
Is it worth it? Do
Mm-hmm.
you feel better because you're miserable because you're holding on to a belief about somebody that may not be true?
Yeah. In a
Have
situation.
you ever considered checking out that belief to see if it's true? Fact check your belief.
Exactly. Observe it. observe it.
Yeah.
Like stand back and observe what that is. Yeah,
Mhm.
I always call that you're the only person keeping score on that one, right?
Yeah.
When you have that going on, you're the only one keeping score.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely, because those things are well, first of all, they're nefarious, right? They can come in from just about anywhere. They can be really subtle, and they can be really affecting, right?
Yeah.
After a while, and if we aren't careful, they can be doing like what you were just talking about, determining behavioral choices, right? Not going to the grocery store, something you need to do because that's where the food is, right?
Right.
Not going there because of some belief,
Uh-huh.
right? And the effort that it takes in your mind to effectively address that, to be okay to go outside. So, yeah, being able to observe that. And that's a key part of what we're talking about here, because if you're going to reframe something in real time, you have to be able to observe that you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
And then make a conscious choice to do something different, right? So, in your case, it's a great example, actually. Noticing, hey, I'm not going to the grocery store because it'll take me an hour and a half to do my makeup and choose my outfit
So
the way I want to.
stupid.
And that is right. And that doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to the store.
I literally think about this. I'm like,
Yeah.
really?
And you don't live really far from the grocery store either. So it's not like
Okay.
you'd be,
Hold the phone.
Yeah.
When this was still my thought, I lived further away.
oh, you
than a
live further
grocery-
away.
My
Okay.
goodness.
Sorry. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Be that as it may, it's not a huge leap, right? Going to the grocery store is usually not that far away.
No.
Right. Right. You're not driving across counties to go to the
No,
grocery store.
not.
All right. But if you observed that belief, then you would have to make the conscious choice that you said to just go, you know what? I'm just going to go without it because I need to go to the store.
Yeah.
Now, you might have been uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
Might have been kind of hypervigilant,
Mm-hmm.
might have felt a little,
Fastest trip I ever had.
right? Hey,
In and out and done.
sometimes when
But
you
I
need
did it.
Twinkies, you need Twinkies, you know?
I do not eat Twinkies.
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
you don't. I know you don't.
Jeez.
I don't
No
know.
sponges. For
I don't know
me.
why
Anyways.
that popped up. But
You must
nevertheless,
like
yeah. So
Twinkies.
you felt that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's what it does. And then you obviously survived it because here you are sitting here right now, right?
Survived
so
the store.
You survived
Good.
that. You made the conscious choice to choose differently. And what that tells our brains is there's a different way to do this. And this fear that we had of not being safe and therefore helping make behavioral choices, we no longer need to follow as readily.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows the opportunity for you then to build on that new habit or to turn it into a new habit, a new choice of just going to the grocery store when you need to go to the damn grocery store.
Right? It's great.
Yeah.
So freeing.
Yeah.
When I finally got there.
Yeah. And it's about a lot more. It's not even really about the grocery store.
No. Because then I'm like, where else can I go
Right.
like this?
Right.
There's like a whole new world here. And I'm like, I have so
Exactly.
much more time in my day now. This is
Exactly.
Great. And I'm saving money because I'm not putting on pounds of makeup all the time.
Mhm.
Life improved. All
Yeah,
I can say. that.
Absolutely.
Life
Absolutely.
improved.
And there's other environments too. I mean, I would think that when you go do your jujitsu work, you're not worried about the
No.
makeup you're putting on.
There is none.
Right. There is none. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because that just makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Right. And yet you're around a whole bunch of other people, probably all doing similarly, not wearing
Mhm.
makeup,
Mm-hmm.
right, for the same reasons. And that reinforces that idea in our brains that this is an okay thing to do in this environment. And if it's okay, if we observe that, we can say, well, if it's okay in this environment, in the dojo, why would it not be in other places? And they can go, okay, because the understanding is it's supposed to be different there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that my belief or is that somebody else's belief?
Yeah.
And then you can choose accordingly. That conscious observance of the belief is a key thing. And then choosing different. Okay, that's how we rewire things. It doesn't just happen magically out of nowhere. We actually have to do work around it. So anyway, I just thought that was a point worth making.
That
More
was,
science.
that was a spot on scientific point.
Yeah.
And it was honestly, it was really true, like what you brought up with like jujitsu and all that. Because even, yes, when you're training there, you don't have makeup on, you don't have like fake nails on because you can't do and have and wear any of that stuff while you're training like that. And in that kind of practice, then, you know, you start to learn different things that you've never done before. And you build such a good feeling and capabilities about yourself that you know, started to love yourself for so many other things other than how you looked.
Exactly.
And all of that confidence then just would filter out through other areas of life. And then all of a sudden I was
Mhm.
like, wow, I feel like I can take on the world
Yeah, it
if I have
updates
more
the belief.
value than what I look like.
Exactly. You updated the belief.
Yep.
Into something bigger,
Mm-hmm.
deeper, more real,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and importantly, yours. And it's a value, a new one, a new belief that serves you.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing, right? That's exactly how it's supposed to go, because all the things we just talked about lead to more self-awareness, self-regulation,
Mm-hmm.
everything. So just observing, it's so funny. People will say all the time, what do I got to do? What I got to do? What I got to do? Really notice and observe these things. Notice when you see the belief, okay, is that one serving me? Even if you
Mhm.
don't know the answer to it yet, just sort of let it hang out there.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
notice that you have
maybe
it.
write it down sometime.
Sure.
And then every time it, like in your phone on the notes app, or like if you have a notebook or something, write down every time it crosses your mind. Make note of
Mhm.
it. And so then you can see like how many times does this cross my mind? And then you can write down next to it like the new belief that you're trying to replace it with.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, every time I have this belief, I'm gonna think about this and choose to believe this.
Yeah,
You will switch that.
I like that.
Thanks.
I like that. Yeah, like little check marks when you
Mhm.
notice that it comes up. Yeah, that's really good. I like that one a lot. I mean, what I like about that too is that you do that and that opens up curiosity, right? Can I shift this around? Can I will I think about it less tomorrow? Can I choose differently more often? Keeping track of that too.
Mhm.
Kind of seeing how that goes over time. I mean, you can literally watch the neuroplasticity in your brain work
Well,
every day if you did
I mean, give yourself the opportunity to not be miserable,
that.
because a lot of the beliefs we're hanging on to that's not serving us is making you miserable.
hmm
It's exhausting.
That's the
It's-
common thread.
Yes. And it's like, wouldn't you like to have a life that's not that way? Wouldn't you want to be free and not carry the weight of that with you all the time?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I would challenge that you give yourself the opportunity to let it go.
I love that, because that's where you get more ease, more meaning,
Mm-hmm.
more flow. Love it.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Well, boy, we blew through that segment. Time for another break. When we come back from break, we'll continue and wrap up this conversation about beliefs that no longer serve us. But we will also do our weekly segment. This week, it is 2 minutes of triumph. We'll be back here in just a minute on Staying Power. Stick around.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Don't ask me to talk.
There's a lot of talk out there. Political talk, sports talk, girl talk, trash talk, and so on. But there's only one, Don't Ask Me to Talk, helmed by conversational off-roaders and podcast pals Eric Ryder and Stacy Heller. They follow every tangent they encounter, from cultural blind spots to their infamous weekly Wheelo topics. Listen wherever you listen to your fave podcasts. Subscribe and share too. Or tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW.
Alternative Talk 1150, the talk of the sound.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Yo.
And today we are talking about, that was funny. Today we are talking about reframing those beliefs that no longer serve us and when to notice that we need to do that, and then exactly how to do that. So we've covered quite a bit of that. We're going to get back to that in just a minute. But first, it is time for our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take roughly 2 minutes to talk about something that happened during the week that was either a triumph or a terror, or what we learned from it, all in the name of showing more vulnerability, building deeper connection. And this week, we're going to talk about the happy side of this. 2 minutes of triumph. Here we go. All right.
You two
Ashley.
are so funny.
Yeah, Ashley, go ahead.
Me. Okay. Well, this is a funny one to admit out loud, but when I'm stressed and frustrated, whatnot, I normally never turn to social media because I think that's the worst place to go because it's just a distraction and a lot of what you see on there is just going to inflate your already exasperated feelings.
Right.
However, I happen to go because I'm like, well, there's a couple pages I follow that's like cute little animal stuff. Of course, I did. And there was this adorable video of these like little ducklings that were up on this like dock and their mom was down below in the water and it was like their first jump and they were all so nervous and some of them just dove right off and then a few of them were like, I don't know, and so on and so forth, and they finally all went and there was like a crowd around there that was cheering
them on. Yeah.
on these adorable little ducklings. It was so cute, and of course there's another one about cats and whatever. It was great. But it was such a silly thing and it brought me such a moment of joy and happiness. Like I'm smiling right now talking about it because they were so stinking cute. And I'm like, you know what? Those little things of life can go so far. I mean, I was having a really terrible moment and I, for whatever reason, found that and it was so cute. And after that, I'm like, moment's not so bad.
There you go.
So
There you
anyways,
go.
animal videos.
That's a great triumph. Yeah, and congratulations on avoiding doom scrolling as a practice. That's
thanks.
well done. Well done.
That's a triumph too.
Okay. Yeah, that
All right.
is. That
What do you
is.
got?
My triumph is I learned again just yesterday the importance of sharing what's going on in my life, particularly when things are difficult or I'm feeling challenged, with the people that are closest to me.
Okay.
I have a tendency sometimes when things feel heavy or I'm feeling uncertain to really go inward. I get caught up in my head and I don't always share what's going on. And it's not always asking for help, just sharing what's happening. And yesterday I ended up actually doing both. Like, just some things were coming down. I was like, I need to talk to somebody about this. I don't know what to do. And so I reached out to a couple people and it was really helpful. And I got some really great assistance, including some assistance I wasn't expecting.
Ooh.
Yeah, which was wonderful. And it was great. And then just the way things lined up, all of a sudden I had people checking in with me who I talk to on a regular basis, but very rarely all in the same day. They all reached out.
Oh, snap.
Just out of, for not because they're like, hey, we sense a disturbance in the force and something must be wrong.
Like,
Just
JD's
checking
getting
in.
all his steps. He must be
No.
anxious.
One reached out to me about hockey. The other one reached out to me about, something funny that they just read. And another person reached out saying, hey, I was wondering how this thing you were telling me about turned out. How did that go? And it gave me an opportunity in all of those cases to actively tell them what was going on with me.
Love that.
Yeah. And it was this reminder that when I do that, not only do I feel better, talk about a belief, right, that I got to get rid of. I can figure all this out on my own, right? That's a belief. Instead, I got not only the help that I needed, but released a lot of the emotion I was feeling, right? A lot of the difficulty I was feeling. And it cleared up my thinking. It cleared up my feelings so that I was actually able to settle down and actually do a little problem solving on some of these things.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's something that I've known before and I've experienced it before, but at times like I'm living through now with a lot of change, a lot of new things going on. It was a really nice reminder and it felt like a triumph that I followed through on it as often as I did. And I
That's great.
recognized the opportunity as it was happening. I'm like, oh, this person's calling and now I'm going to do the same thing.
Is that what you meant earlier when you said you had mentioned it in our 2-minute segment about fidgeting? You get anxious.
Oh, yes. Yes. Thank you. It wasn't even fidgeting. I was so up in my head and unsettled that I was walking around my house, like picking up a piece of paper and moving it from one table to another. Checking on the dishes in the dishwasher 3 times. Like,
Really?
or yeah, waiting for starting laundry I didn't need to do, that could have waited, right? There were all these things. Went out and checked the mail, right? And I usually check that end of the day. I went out and checked. The guy hadn't even been there yet, right? So it was just, and I caught myself in the middle of that, but it took me a couple hours.
I like how you start doing chores.
But it's not even chores. It's just like half chores. It's
Yeah.
like quarter chores. Like,
It's like not constructively done.
or
It's
I'll
just-
think about it. I'll walk into the bathroom and go, I could clean this. Nah. Okay. Or maybe I'll
Gotta
straighten
go
this
find
towel.
that piece of paper.
I'll
Oh yeah,
I'll
straighten the towel. I did
I'll
something.
straighten
Okay,
the
great.
towel. Right. I mean,
Out
it's
the
just,
dishes.
and it's just this restless feeling.
Yeah.
And, but what I had to do is once I realized that, okay, I need to actually talk about this. And it was fortunately one of those moments that we're talking about today where I was able to recognize something, observe it, see what it was doing, and then make a different choice. So the triumph is that I was practicing what I'm now preaching.
Oh, good. Good to know that you're practicing
Right,
that.
exactly. So
Was that a conscious decision, or was that something you started off with curiosity about?
it was a conscious awareness all of a sudden that I was restless and
Right.
walking around and I was doing nothing. Like you're just wasting time. Right. And then the curiosity behind that was like, okay, why are you doing that?
Mm.
And the answer came behind that is you are emotionally overloaded. Okay, then behind that came what are you emotionally overloaded by? What feelings? Frustration, fear, uncertainty, anger, helplessness, right? These were all varying degrees of
Good
this.
grief.
No, they're all in varying degrees,
Oh, okay.
right? They were all in varying
Wow.
degrees, but I was just in a real tough moment. And then I was like, okay, so I realized all that. Then the question became, what helps in those times where you know you're feeling that? Okay, I need to release that energy somehow, right? Either an emotional release of some sort, or I need to talk about this, or both.
Mhm.
And in the case, what I ended up doing was I ended up making a couple phone calls, and the emotion followed right behind it, right? So there was that.
Mhm.
And these are people that I know I can go to for a really good landing spot, right? And so that helped. And then behind that was, okay, what can you do differently, and can you accept what is offered, right?
Oh.
The help, the
Sure.
advice, the wisdom, the space, the empathy. Can you accept that as well? And yeah, so it kind of was a process to answer your question. So all those were part of it, but it took a little while. Took a little while to unravel. And interestingly enough, I slept so much better last night than I have in like 4 days.
Oh, good.
So it was probably building up on me a lot
Well,
longer than just yesterday.
That's important.
Yeah, for
Sleep
sure.
is a must.
Right. It is. Absolutely a must. Okay. So with that, in this last segment, Ashley, let's talk
Mhm.
a little bit about, we like to give people takeaways, right?
Mhm.
Here are things we can do. So what are some things, like what are the signs? Let's talk about that. What are signs people can be looking for that perhaps a belief isn't serving them anymore? What are some things they can look for? We've mentioned a few, right? But there's turns of phrases, there's thoughts, there's stuff like that. Anything come to mind?
I mean, for me, I would say that as soon as you started to get tired or exhausted by it, you get an ick feeling. I don't know how to describe that. You would
Ick.
say you probably feel something like deep down in your tummy.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't feel good anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really use curiosity about where's that feeling coming from
Mm-hmm.
and you recognize it, allow yourself that freedom to challenge that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's would be a first one that comes to mind is I
Yeah.
get that feeling.
That ick feeling.
That I'm like, this does not serve me and I don't like it and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I know how to get rid of this is to try something different, which includes not believing this belief anymore.
Right. Right. Trying something else out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want
Right.
a new belief.
Yeah. And everybody responds differently to that ick, right? In my case, it's restlessness,
Mhm.
right? In your case, what is it? What are your tells that you're in the ick feeling?
Oh, my tells. I probably get grumpy if you were to ask other people. I don't think so. I get really quiet.
Quiet.
I go very inward
Got it.
and give a lot of thought to
Mhm.
it.
Is it really intense thought, like intense feeling, like frustration? Got to figure this out.
Yes, sometimes it can be frustration. People have said that they can feel like the energy rolling off of me about that, which I'm like, maybe, depending on the, level of seriousness through this.
Mhm.
But
Sure. Yeah, I think
sometimes.
that ick feeling, and that can be just in the moment. It can be burnout. If you're feeling chronically that way, that can be another sign of it. There's also some things I think that we can say to ourselves that can be signs of these things. Like we mentioned a couple of them, but if I have to do everything, otherwise everything falls apart.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. That's one of those things. If a statement like that, if I don't do this,
Mhm.
everything's going to fail. If I don't sacrifice myself for this, nothing's going to happen, right? That can be a thing. We can see that
Sure.
at work.
Oh, yeah.
We can see that,
I
yeah.
have had that one before.
Right.
Another one I actually commonly see is, well, that's just how I am. And this one, if you want to like really piss me off in a very short period of time,
Yeah.
like see a real fast flame,
Mm-hmm.
use that as an excuse. That's just me.
Yeah,
It's
we did
how
a
I
whole
am.
episode on that
Yeah.
not too long ago. Yeah, wow. There's the energy. Look at
But
that.
I'm like, really? Like, I'm just going to sit here and accept that you're unwilling to do anything with this and take
Mhm.
no responsibility at all?
Yep.
Absolutely not.
That's just how I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can change yourself,
Mm-hmm.
sir
Yeah.
or ma'am.
Yeah.
But you know, like that one just, I'm like, no, unaccepted.
Yeah, it's because that's usually used as a shorthand for I don't really want to change anything.
Yes. Yeah. It's,
Right.
it's saying a very strong message in a very short sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is one that I do not believe.
I don't either, and it's also one of those telltale things we were talking about earlier that can suggest that in the name of I am just who I am, keeping it real and I'm independent, you're actually
Mhm.
shielding yourself from having to do anything tough.
Yep.
Yeah, there is that one. So that might be one. Another one, similar. If I don't do this, I'm going to lose everything I've worked for. Statement like that. Right?
Sure.
That's why so many people stay in jobs they hate. Right?
Mhm.
If I don't do this, I'm going to lose this. Right? Or, and while that might be true, if you stopped a job and you stopped making money, right, you might lose some things.
Mhm.
What that statement can do is limit the idea that you could find something else to make that money that might be more rewarding. Maybe it's less money, but you actually feel better doing it. It makes your life better, even if you're making a little bit less money. Now, I realize that's difficult because some people really deal with economic insecurity or fear of that.
Sure.
And those are all real things, particularly if you grew up with it. So it's not to say all these are fit everybody equally,
Mhm.
but these are just different examples of those types of things. If you're looking for some way to go, maybe that's a belief. What are the statements you say about yourself when you're in a protected mode or a resentful mode? Those might be the first things to look at.
I do see as a last one, because I know we're wrapping up, but
No, that's fine.
as when, like, in reference to if people are in an argument or whatnot, and they're like, I do not want to drop my resentment-filled belief about that person because I will look weak or my ego is going to take a hit and I don't want to
Mhm.
feel that.
Mhm.
And anytime you notice that, that's a good indicator that you should probably drop that.
Yeah.
You
Right.
should really practice that.
Right. Observe it.
Observe it.
It. See what it's doing.
Mhm.
See how it's
Yeah.
affecting.
And you know what? Chances are the other person's not going to look at you and be like, huh, got you. No, they're probably going to be like, I really appreciate the fact that you can be a nice, genuine, honest human being and admit a fault
Yeah. Yeah.
that you
Because
have.
because we can all relate to that because we all
Yes.
have faults that we're afraid of everybody seeing.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, coming down to the end of today's episode. Ashley, this was a great topic. Great to
Thanks.
suggest
This
that.
was good. Thanks
You know,
for chatting with me. about
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. And a reminder to all of our listeners that really what we're talking about here, when you reframe an idea and you do it successfully and you find success in it, you're actually building resilience.
Mhm.
You're increasing your own sense of agency, right? And that deepens our ability to handle more stress, to relate with others with compassion, and to grow. So this week, if you want something to kind of focus on, observe, notice stuff that comes up. Listen to the body signs that maybe there's something that you have a belief going on that might need some reframing, and just notice what it's doing
Mhm.
and see what ideas you have for different choices, and then try one out. Do it over something small. Try it once. See what happens. See what it feels like. And if you have that experience and you want to share it with us, please let us know at stayingpowershow@gmail.com or reach out to us on our social media feeds. We'd love to hear about it. We might even talk about it on the air. So thanks so much
Yes.
for joining us for today's episode of Staying Power. We'll be back next week with another interesting topic. Until then, and then when we get here, I'll still be JD Winnikin.
And I'll still be Ashley Knievel.
We'll see you guys soon.
Bye.